Add this Titan build to the list of broken free GM farming builds because this will carry you through some GMs pretty easily this season and really not require much effort at all outside of just pointing and shooting. Now this is thanks to the brand new addition of our new subclass keyword Arc Bolt and some stupid synergy with our artifact mod that will both enhance our weapons and the damage of our Arc Bolts themselves. Now before we get into the video, if you guys do enjoy the content, a like and sub would be greatly appreciated, plus come check out my Twitch where we're live almost every day. Thank you. So this build's focus is to cause as many bolt charges to enemies while also spreading volatile and weaken around, letting us nuke rooms pretty quickly. This is thanks to our new Arc Titan aspect, Storm's Keep. Using your class ability grants 5 stacks of bolt charge to you and nearby allies right away, and then while behind the barricade, you and allies gain stacks of bolt charge over time, and now your weapons can be used to discharge your bolt charge at max stacks. This grants us some crazy stupid damage chunks to enemies, especially thanks to our artifact mod Flashover, where our lightning bolts now do increased damage, and you might have to fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's like double the damage. Now, since we are focusing this build around spamming as many barricades as physically possible, the best thing to probably do is to fully build into them. Now we're going to do that by using our exotic armor of choice, Hazardous Propulsion, where weapon precision hits or final blows have a chance to load a kinetic rocket. These can stack up to 5, and on barricade use, it will fire the loaded rockets at enemies, which have some really strong tracking. It will also grant our rockets a damage buff for each rocket that hits enemies. This does indeed buff rocket sidearms, which we're going to be using in this build, which is, kind of nice. Now this exotic gives us the ability to spam even more damage, which makes this build so damn good, man. But we aren't done yet. Add in Layman Arc to use alongside the artifact mod Volatile Marksman to grant it volatile rounds and its insane boosted bonus, where volatile detonations grant us class ability energy, and you'll have your barricades back insanely fast, giving you virtually 0 downtime as long as you have enemies to shoot at. Also for Layman Arc, the poison plus volatile detonations can discharge the bolt charges, which adds just a little extra hidden synergy that I think is super cool. Now, Layman Arc's also going to be helpful in dealing with overload champions thanks to it intrinsically having overload, and if you have a catalyst, Finished Unrelenting is great for chunking back a little extra health on enemy kills. It's nice, but if you don't have it, it's really not a big deal. Now let's go over the rest of the build here. For the subclass, we're using Thunder Crash, so we can insta-kill stun champions or chunk bosses. The abilities are going to be Rallied Barricade, since we can shoot over it, obviously. It has a short cooldown and gives some great buffs as well. Thunderclap melee is going to be our melee of choice since it's our best ranged option, but you could use Shoulder Charge to blind while amplified if you really want to. Now for grenade, either a pulse grenade to deal with groups of enemies or a flash grenade to stun unstoppables, plus add in the fragment Spark of Shock, and you can also stun overload champs as well. Now the aspects used are going to be, again, Storm's Keep for our crazy bolt charge enhanced barricades, plus knockout so we can buff our melees and insta heal if we get surrounded by enemies. Now this could be maybe replaced with Touch of Thunder, but I'm not really sure if I'd recommend it as much. I mean, you really only need Storm's Keep for this build to function, so whatever is the second one is totally up to you. Now the fragments used in this build are going to be Spark of Ions, so when you defeat a jolted enemy or defeat a target with a bolt charge, you will create an ionic trace. If you decided to use a pulse grenade instead of the flash grenade, I would opt this out for Spark of Magnitude to increase that grenade's duration. Next is going to be Spark of Shock, which will grant our grenades jolt. Spark of Frequency for the second part of the fragment. While amplified, you gain increased bolt charge stacks from all sources. And yes, this quite literally means you will gain 2 stacks at a time instead of 1, allowing for some stupid arc bolt spamming. It's just awesome. And then lastly, we're going to be taking Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you will take less damage. Now I'll leave the armor mods on screen for this build. You want to focus on buffing your bow pretty much since your class ability doesn't need any extra recharge at all. So I'm going to be using Void Siphon with heavy ammo finders on the helmet, double Void Loader and bolstering detonation on our gloves so our grenades can get a chunk of class ability energy back, recuperation on the boots, and double a Void Surge to boost Layman Arc's damage. And then lastly for the class item, time dilation for extra time on stacks, our surges, and then also powerful attraction to pull in orbs for our surge stacks, and then lastly just a bomber for, little grenade energy. For the stats, you really only need 100 resilience, since that helps get our barricade back faster. The other stats can really be whatever you prefer, like I have 100 discipline, but It's up to you. Just make sure you have 100 resilience. That's the most important thing to have. For the weapons, our exotic of choice is obviously Layman Arc, which is so damn good in GMs, it seems like always. And now with these new seasonal mods, it makes it even better. The other weapons we're going to be using is going to be Tanisha's Mastery with Chill Clip to deal with unstops, overloads, and anti-barriers thanks to the artifact mod. Plus, this can get up to a 35% damage buff from hazardous propulsion, if all the 5 rockets hit, of course, which is nice, but it really isn't necessary because I wouldn't recommend using it as much as the bow. Now lastly, for the heavy, I'm using Doom Petitioner to use with our Void Surges to get that nice damage buff to help against bosses. Now lastly, onto our artifact mod, we're going to be taking Unstop Linear / Fusion, Anti-Barrier Sidearms, Volatile Marksman so we can get volatile on our Void weapons, and so we can grant class ability energy back from the boosted part of the perk, Dielectric, so when we defeat arc debuff targets, we get an extra stack of Boltcharge, and its boosted perk where rapidly defeating arc debuff targets grants an orbit power and grants us a chunk of health, so nice little extra bit of survivability. Next is King's Vestige, especially for this week since the enemies are all taken, giving us the ability to disrupt and exhaust enemies. Dreadful Finisher, to spawn special on finishers against more powerful enemies. Maligned Harvest, when we rapidly apply Volatile, we can cause a weakening burst on the next source of void weapon damage. Flashover, which will grant us amplification on max bolt charge stacks, which is a 15% damage resist, plus double the damage of our arc bolts, which you might have to fact check me on, but that's the big reason to take this. Now in the last column, the necessary pick is really just going to be Defibrillating Blast, where stunning champions grants max stacks of bolt charge and triggers an arc bolt that will heal you and jolt nearby enemies. The other one can be up to whatever I guess you prefer. I'd say between Void Flux, where defeating weakened enemies with a void weapon applies volatile to nearby targets, and that radius will increase with the more powerful enemies, or you can take Particle Reconstruction for a large buff to your linear fusions and fusion rifles. It's truly up to you what you prefer. But personally, I've been enjoying using Void Flux more. Since I barely use my linear, I'm just mostly spamming Layman Arc throughout 90% of the GM, I'd say. So yeah, another season, another busted GM build, and this one is so much fun to me, man. I just find the bolt charge is so satisfying. Maybe it's not the most enjoyable playstyle, just sitting behind a barricade, but I don't know, I think it's pretty damn fun. Bungie, please do not nerf this though, seriously. It is really enjoyable to play and has made Arc Titan for the first time since Storm Grenade build all the way back in Plunder useful in all content. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy the build, and good luck on your farms out there. Plus, I think next week might be double drops alongside the Rocket Sidearm, maybe? Someone let me know if that's true, false, I don't know, that's what I've seen online. But I really sure hope it is. Well, see you guys in the next one. Peace.